Hey there, folks. Yeah, it's Rebecca coming back at you after a little while. These videos seem to get spaced further and further apart, possibly because I'm starting to tackle topics instead of just my various and sundry. But anyways, so this is another photo or video presentation where there's a few more audio-visual supplementary materials, and that takes me a while to compile and unearth some of the old stuff. So last time we did a little video about the so-called bad old days. So back in, 1991 or so, when I first came up for air. And I had mentioned that I gradually desisted and hadn't realized I'd forgotten all of that. So I thought I would do a little bit about the limbo times. I know I've had some feedback from some people who didn't see my video, my old video, as being all that dark and depressing, and I don't know that that was really my intention, but some people saw it as an optimistic tale of redemption or something, where at least finally I'm acting on this all of this. So anyway, so here's a little bit more about that limbo period. So I don't know if this is if I was being very positive about it, I'd call it towards better days, perhaps, instead of the limbo years. But anyways, so that's the rough idea. By the way, I'm trying to bang out this video before going to pick up my kids. So it's going to be as malformed as always. So before we get into that, just a few little news items. So just a few days ago, our household saw the introduction of a new family member. So we are part of Club Pandemic Pets. We got ourselves a little miniature long-haired dachshund, and the lady Penelope is her official name, but of course we're calling her Penny, and that's the name it says on her name tag. Anyway, so it's only been 4 or 5 days or so. She is gradually acclimating and now turning into a little monster and unearthing all sorts of stuff. So it's pretty crazy, but it's endearing watching her do all these puppy cliches, like bouncing around the house with a big shoe in her mouth and so on. So she's pretty adorbs. And, well, being a trans lady walking down in my neighborhood with a little dachshund kind of fits, so it feels pretty good. I take nothing for granted anymore, and this is just one more piece of that puzzle. So the family's happy, though. I'm pretty thrilled. So kudos to my wife for making that whole dog thing happen. Other than that, last time I mentioned I'd applied for my name and gender change. Sent that to Thunder Bay, and I hoped nothing went wrong. And something went wrong. So I was worried that my doctor had goofed on me by not giving me a signed document, which he claimed COVID would be a good excuse for. So it got returned to me saying we cannot accept a photocopy. So, oh well, so that was delayed. So I was hoping that would arrive before my birthday. Whatever. So it's all been sent off again, though, with extreme haste or so. Anyways, and I have just recently completed my series of interviews for my doctor and a second independent social worker to apply for funding for surgery for the big one. And we're moving ahead with that. So voila, I've been declared sane by 2 health professionals. Yeah, so I don't have to act on any of this, but the application for funding is moving forward. So I never count my chickens before they're hatched. So, anyways, but that's the thing that's happening too. And there we go. So I think that's about it for the little news items. Okay, so welcome to the audio-visual, just the visual component. I thought I would take us, so I've got a little guide here. I don't actually have any prints anymore per se. It's all digital presentation. At least the oldest photos I think are prints, but anyways, you don't need to worry about that. So, anyways, I'm going to look at these on my screen just off to the side, just to kind of have a little visual commentary. So I thought I would start it with just, pictures, couple of pictures as I was starting to leave that behind. I still had my insanely long hair. I was still telling potential girlfriends and partners, saying, yeah, this is the thing about me. I think I'm a crossdresser. It's kind of falls into the kink meets identity thing or something, or so I thought. But I was giving it up and I didn't know. And so when I was unearthing all these old photos, looking for the stuff I showed in my last video, I remember seeing those pictures of like, oh God, this is when you gave it up. And this is when you started the long forgetting process. And that was probably my first session. The next day after having hunted for these photos, I remember having my first long cry in the morning right in front of my wife as I started to really contemplate all those last years and how I'd let myself down so thoroughly. So, of course, estrogen can facilitate tears in different ways for different people. And it really, for me, it helped me cry for longer than 10 seconds, which is what I used to cry at. So I don't know if there's estrogen or just like feeling things so deeply. But the other thing I did note, though, was after those tears, I felt better. For once in my life, tears felt cathartic in a way that I was like, God, that felt really good. I really felt like something had been taken off my chest. Not that I still don't live with that kind of regret, but I did feel lighter. It felt productive crying. So, anyways, so those photos are a thing. I ended up finding other images, which I'm not going to share here because I do find them kind of triggering after a while. But I gradually tracked my different hairstyles. They were gradually getting shorter and shorter into weird little pompadours. Goatees came and went. And eventually my hair just got typically short. Got some kind of, brush cut kind of thing. And all because I remember there was a woman I had long nursed a crush for, and she did not go for people with long hair. And well, what was I going to do? So that hair eventually became short. And so that hair would be from the age of 27 until, 46, 47. I just had short hair. So an awful, insane long time. So beards made an appearance. Giant beards made an appearance. I was doing my best to play with maleness because I thought that was my only choice. So I devoted a piece of every single day wishing as a woman, but then I would put that away and try to move through the world as male. So, and every now and then, so let's look at this other photo. You had, voila, Halloween. So Halloween, sometimes jokingly referred to as International Crossdressers Day. One of those few times where you can pretend it's perfectly normal to, dress up in female attire. So this little group photo here, my premise was that I was dressing as a lesbian vampire, which was is a trope. If you search out late 60s, 70s period horror films, you will find a lot of lesbian vampire films. So I pretended, I love horror movies, and so I'm just doing this obscure hipster thing or something. But really, it was just an excuse to wear some female clothing again. And that was done courtesy of my wife. And voila, that was a delightful little night. And then I put the things away. A couple of years later, another Halloween. So my wife actually and I dressed in these identical costumes. Apologies, the quality of this image is the best I could find, but anyways, there we were as sort of 60s mod chicks or something, I think was the was the premise there. The dress barely fit, and my boots were so tight. And yeah, I did not feel that good, but it was kind of fun to go out in the world again. We went to go see the Toxic Avenger play, and came home, and that was that. But I remember, I think the most satisfying part of the night was taking the subway with my wife. It was being out in the world. And even though people would have looked at me and my wife and said, oh, well, those are Halloween costumes, I pretended they weren't. So, yeah, just being and existing in the world meant more than just going to see like a fun play and that sort of thing. And I tried to pretend it wasn't Halloween and so on. But it's also very fraught when you have all this identity bound up into it. So I had shame. I didn't want to be seen. And yet I needed to be out there. I needed to be amongst other people. So, oh, the pain. So anyways, and flash forward maybe less than a year, September 25th, 2010, no, 9, Jen and I got married, and her boss at the time said, well, what are you folks doing for your Halloween? Sorry, for your honeymoon? Because I got this cottage in North Bay that's just sitting there empty at this time. It's late September, so. And we were like, we had put all our energy into planning the wedding, that we're like, this sounds okay. And we realized everyone was leaving town afterwards, so it was just us going to the cottage. And both my wife and I had independently thought this, going, this might be a safe space for me to put on clothing again. So, present female. I had my beard and short hair, so the options were extremely limited. We found a goofy Halloween costume and took some photos in total isolation and so on. And these were really disappointing images. Like, these are also triggering, so pardon me if you only see the back of me. So, but it speaks to the weird complex that my generation of trans person grows up with, that I have to go to North Bay or wait for Halloween or that sort of thing to just let the real me kind of come out a bit. So it all looked a little bit ridiculous, but whatever. Anyways, that proved to be a pretty creepy, empty time, and we quickly packed things up the next day and said, this kind of stinks. And then we went to Niagara Falls. So as a last minute improv as to what we're going to do with our honeymoon. So don't judge, please. Anywho, speaking of other long distance safe spaces, so I was going to my friend's wedding. I think this was maybe 5.5 years ago, almost 6 years ago, to Dawson City. And was driven up there by my friend Catherine, who lives in Whitehorse. And Catherine's cis lesbian and has known me for ever. And she's known what I've known about my gender as I was revealing itself to myself, to other people. And she was my best man at my wedding. So, we go back, we got history. Sometimes our relationship is plenty mediocre. But we got history, so whatever. But Catherine drove me up to Dawson City, and there was this little Peabody's photo parlor, like as part of like the vintage tourist scene going on in Dawson City. So you kind of get to put on costumes, and you get photographed in sort of period garb and so on. So, and we both looked at each other and was like, gender change? We were like, yep. So she dressed as the man, and I dressed as the woman. So again, I had a beard. The photos were ultimately disappointing to me and triggering and so on. But it was kind of fun. But again, talk about needing safe spaces. Like, I'm going to leave Toronto and go all the way across the country in the far north in this small little tourist town and secretly take photos with my lesbian pal in gender switched period clothing, whatever. So, but yeah, kind of a fun little record. So, and that was about 5.5 years ago. And then pretty much nothing in terms of practice, or my hipster beard came into full force for the next 5 years. And flash forward. So this is where, oh God, the trans stuff is finally coming out. So January 2019, my wife and one of her best friend, pretty darn close to one of my best friends, they were going to a nail salon just down the street, and my wife was like, "Do you want to come?" And I was like, "Sure, okay." My nails were never anything special, and I was like, "Well, maybe I'll get, you know what? Now that I'm actually going to go to this nail salon, maybe I'll get something like really feminine red or something." And I chickened out and got some kind of army green color, and they just kind of trimmed my nails, and everything was cleaned up and so on. And I loved it. I was triggered and I didn't know. And I was like, I felt good. I felt ready for the world. I had all those kind of good feelings that your average cis woman associates with just having her nails did. And after a while, I was like, okay, I didn't want to chip them. And once they started to chip, I started to become sad. And I started to look forward to the next time that it was like, I was telling my wife, you know what, I really, really like this. I don't know why. And maybe can we go again? And when she finally booked another appointment, because God forbid I couldn't do it myself, I was like suddenly really happy that we had something to look forward to. And during this time between nail appointments, I had left my nails completely alone. So I no longer chewed them. I treated them with kid gloves and so on. So that when we went to the nail salon and they were taking off the old polish, I saw how long my nails had gotten. And I remember looking at my little pinky as the woman was taking it off. She'd taken off the polish. She'd yet to file it in any particular way. And I saw how long it had gotten and how feminine my pinky looked. And my heart squeezed. Like it really squeezed. And I looked away. And I was like, that's just looking at a long fingernail did that to you? Like, give me a break. Let's just look again. And I looked again. And my heart squeezed again. And then I told her, nope, I don't want to trim the length. And we got new nails. And then after a while, I was like, okay, my nails are never going to be naked again. So thus began in early 2019 an obsession with nail polish, an obsession with nail salons, and just this kind of like inner feminine energy that was bubbling up in a big way. So I remember when I would later go to my original family doctor and say, I'm transgender, or I sure think I am. And I found myself having to furnish proof. And she was very reluctant and just kind of like, are you sure? All that kind of stuff. All the usual stuff a trans person faces when they tell their doctor at first. And I realized at one point, I said, well, one of the little things, like I remember I told her essentially that I gave myself carpal tunnel because I had kept looking at my nails. I was like, it really hurts when I do this. And so I'd like, every time I twisted my hand to look at my nails in just a particular way, and it started to hurt my wrist. So I was like, wow, something's going on here. So, but yeah, somewhere in this nail extravaganza before I spoke to my doctor was when my wife was, that's when she's like, okay, what's going on? And how often do you think about this? And then began I think about it every day. It's just a thing I do. And thought you knew. So, and thus opened the gates and so on, which we talked about in my last video. So, anywho, so yeah, things were really open. In a way, the nails was like kind of like the final straw. And thus began the daydreams of transition and the realization that I had to do this. So, and gradually coming out to people, still presenting male in the world, and wondering if it was ever going to be possible and how on earth was I going to swing it. So, and then somewhere in October, so my birthday was approaching, and my wife had planned, let's do a little soft introduction to our friends and neighbors to meet Rebecca. And so we're going to booking my studio for that sort of thing. But I'd yet to actually put on makeup. I had like 1.5 dresses or something. And I really didn't know how the hell I was going to look. I thought really, you need to do this. I started taking hormones in the summer, and it kind of didn't matter if I was going to be ugly, but I really didn't want to be ugly either. I needed to kind of honor some female something, and I was worried I was just going to be repulsed. And I had put out feelers to some makeup artists, and then finally my friend Taylor was available and super willing to help me out. So I had messaged her on Instagram, and I remember seeing a little note saying, "I'm going to make this amazing for you." So, and she kind of did. I went to her place about a week before my birthday, and we did a little bit of a dry run. So I just kind of sat there. She did my makeup, and then she's like, "Do you want curly hair?" Which is now why I've got curly hair almost every day. So she curled my hair. She put in some fake eyelashes and smiled at me and said, "You're done." And as I was going to look in her bathroom mirror, I was fully prepared to go, "It's okay. There's nothing you can do. I'm hopeless. I'm just so male, so doomed in my skin. I really don't blame you. I could never do anything 25 years ago. So why would I expect you to be able to do anything?" So, and it's not that I'm suddenly was turned into this cis-passing illusion of femininity or whatnot, but I looked in the mirror a bit askew, a bit sideways at first, and I did not hate who I saw. I smiled a little bit in the mirror. I was like, "That's me. She's okay. I kind of like her. I kind of like who this person is." And I was like, "Taylor, I don't hate it. I kind of like it." So that was a huge, huge gift to give me. So thankful. I later went to my support group, and where I think it was like every 2 weeks, where I'd been presenting at this trans group, just in my drab male presentation. And I walked in halfway into the group, and I remember the group leader, as she was having an exchange or somebody was talking, telling their story, and I went and took my place in a chair, and she looked at me and gave me like a big thumbs up, like what a change. So, and then I remember just sitting in my chair and looking down at my denim skirt and my nails, and I think I was wearing some sort of hose, and vibrating with joy. Like it's like I could feel like the universe emanating upon me in just this kind of like total sense of self. And wow. And then the support group ended. I remember our facilitator, she just came up to me and said, "Oh wow, I much prefer you as a woman." So I was like, "Me too." So and then I'm just coming home and going, I have to make this moment last. I'm just like looking at myself in the rear view mirror of my car and so on, and going, who knows if you're going to get this feeling again. Just take it all in and don't forget it. So, and yeah, so what a fabulous, momentous first occasion. And then a week later, my wife threw this amazing coming out party. So it's lots of friends and neighbors, some new friends that I had made along the way. A queer friend in particular I'm thinking of. And some older queer friends that I finally told as well. Like, just lots of things were kind of coming full circle is really what I'm saying. I was not that thrilled. I remember looking at the photos afterwards of that particular party and going, you didn't look as good as you felt, but it was still magic. So, yeah, some pretty good times. So, and so that was October. And then once again, so I still was living really just kind of under the radar, even if all my friends knew and people were just calling me Rebecca now and so on. There was a whole other world that was not really enmeshed with, and I had only been seen at night. So then came a little day weekend trip to Montreal. So I once again met with Catherine, and she was there for work. And the next couple of days was spent in daylight. So again, a little bit of that safe space stuff. It's like I had to leave my own town to see what it was like to venture out into the world and in broad daylight and so on. So there's interesting experiences there. Great first day. When I took the train back home, I did not revert back to my old mode of being. So that was my first train ride as a woman or whatever. So, or that's what I was trying to tell the world that I was. But that wasn't bad. Although I remember coming home that night and taking public transit home and so on. And all of a sudden, everything felt meaningless. And I was like, what am I doing? Nobody sees me one way or the other. It's not that they see a man or a woman or a trans woman. You're just invisible like you always been. So I remember that was one of my first existential attacks. I've had a few others. Some days I feel so freaking amazing being in my own skin. Other days it's like, what's the point again? So, and I can't get it. I can't intellectually get myself back to that divine sense of self, but then it can come back and so on. So, whatever. Anywho, so that's a little bit of the holistic up to speed thing. So, and then in this past January 2020, I started teaching this myself, and that's we came out to my wife's family and all that sort of thing. So, and then now life is what it is with various things to look forward to and whatever, and you know, all the usual stresses. So anywho, yeah, that's the last of my little auto documentary pieces. I don't know what else there might be to say, but yeah, so I am going to awkwardly end this because I have to go pick up my kids. So thanks for watching again, and hope to see you in the next one, whenever that might be. So, all right. One more awkward goodbye and much love to you. And so on. Okay. All right. I'm going to click stop.